Regret it clings to you, a shadow you can't shake, the air itself thick with unspoken choices, mistakes replayed on endless loop. Months gone, and the weight still presses down, a constant reminder of what shattered, what I let slip away. It wasn't just desire or betrayal, though those were flames in the fire. No, it was deeper layers, hidden longings, fears that sculpted every move, every wrong turn. I was lost even then, blind to it, chasing a ghost of myself I thought I'd lost somewhere along the way in the gilded cage of my life with Richard. Then Ethan walked in. He wasn't supposed to be part of our world, a ripple in the placid pond of our routine. But from the moment his eyes met mine, everything tilted. He was impulse instinct, a life lived raw and untamed. With him, it was another world, a place without rules, without the suffocating weight of duty, freedom. It always has a price, and I was blind to the bill. Silence, that's what I remember most in that penthouse high above Central Park. A hushed quiet that swallowed every secret, every stolen glance. It filled the corners of our gilded cage, settled like a shroud over Fifth Avenue secrets. We spun them like silk threads, thinking them strong enough to hold. But secrets always unravel, especially the ones you guard with your life. Looking back now, the signs are glaring, the warnings. I ignored, the moments I dismissed in my desperate grasp for something that was never mine to keep. It was only a matter of time before the whole fragile structure collapsed, leaving me with nothing but silence and the ghost of what I had lost. The penthouse stands empty now, its panoramic windows reflecting only the cold city sky. The stories I thought I could bury within its walls, they echo still. I can't go back. The past is stone, but the choices, they are etched into the life I tried so hard to protect and failed so spectacularly. This isn't a tale of forgiveness or redemption. No cheap grace here. It's just consequence, shadows grown too long, desires that devoured everything in their path. The penthouse on Fifth Avenue, it was Richard's kingdom, a sprawling space of glass and steel overlooking the city lights. From every window, Central Park spread out a green carpet against the concrete jungle. Years with Richard had molded me to its quiet splendor, the hushed elegance of rooms designed to absorb sound, to hold secrets. Maybe that's why it felt like home, even as my own secret desires took root in the silence between Richard and me. Richard, my second husband, a decade of careful choreography, 10 years my senior, he offered stability, accomplishment, a fortress against the chaos of the world. He built empires, real estate fortunes before retreating to the spoils of his relentless climb. We met through mutual friends, a slow burn comfort in his quiet strength, his control, his precision, qualities I admired, tried to mirror. But with time, those very walls of control became my prison boundaries that kept me at arm's length. Richard retreated further, into himself, as if the sheer opulence of our life was enough to fill the growing void between us. Appearances were everything, connection, a fading memory, conversations were routines, days, rituals, presence required heart optional. Then Richard announced his son Ethan would be staying with us a few weeks. Surprise, it was a rare tremor in our predictable world. Richard rarely spoke of Ethan, the son from his first marriage, a young man as untamed and restless as Richard was controlled and disciplined. I've met Ethan a handful of times, fleeting encounters with a stranger shaped by a life utterly alien to ours. He needs a change of scenery, Richard had said one evening. His tone carefully measured, a performance for himself as much as for me. Good for him to be here away from distractions. No details offered, no questions pressed. But I wondered about Ethan, about the life he lived, and why after years of silence, Richard suddenly wanted him here in our carefully curated world. It felt like an intrusion, a crack in the flawless facade of our lives, and yet a part of me, a dangerous dormant part, welcomed it, craved the disruption. The unpredictable Ethan arrived on a gray New York afternoon, the sky mirroring the steel and glass of the city. I watched from the panoramic window as his cab pulled up. He unfolded himself from the car, a lean figure in black leather and denim hair longer than I'd remembered falling across his face, a posture relaxed, almost defiant. He stepped into our world, but not to conform, to conquer. Richard greeted him with a handshake, stiff and formal. Awkwardness hung in the air as I stepped forward, offering a polite smile. "Ethan, good to see you," I said, extending a hand. His touch was warm, his gaze steady, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "Thanks," he replied, voice calm, measured. "Been a while." A silence stretched taut with unspoken history, with the weight of years and distance. Richard cleared his throat, a forced break in the tension, and led Ethan into the penthouse. His voice low, he pointed out the renovations, the changes made since Ethan's last visit. I trailed behind, listening to Richard's inventory of luxury, the new marble, the imported chandelier, the artwork curated to whisper timeless elegance. Ethan nodded, his gaze lingering on the details, but his expression remained unreadable. Polite, attentive, a detached observer taking in the life Richard and I had built without ever truly entering it. Dinner that evening in the formal dining room, the city. Lights a glittering tapestry beyond the glass, Richard launched into his interrogation about Ethan's work, his plans. Each question a carefully aimed probe delivered with icy formality, still painting. Richard asked tone casual but with an edge of expectation. Ethan nodded, cutting into his steak. Yes, when I can. Experimenting with new techniques, Richard's eyebrow arched a faint smile playing at his lips. Art a challenging path, but you're committed then. A pause, a flicker in Ethan's eyes, pride defiance. Maybe a touch of resentment, I am, he said simply, voice low, firm. It's what I meant to do. I watched them, sensing the undercurrent, the subtle clash of values that defined their relationship. Richard had always envisioned Ethan following in his footsteps, conquering the world, molding it to his will. But Ethan was different, a man moving to his own rhythm, driven by a passion. Richard seemed to regard with a mixture of pride and skepticism, and as I sat there observing them, I felt a strange kinship. With Ethan, a shared understanding of the unspoken distance between us and Richard, a distance that went beyond words. In the days that followed, I found myself drawn to Ethan, an inexplicable pull, intrigued by his quiet intensity, the way he moved through the penthouse like a ghost, both present and apart. He would vanish for hours, sketching on the balcony, his gaze fixed, his expression lost in thought. I would watch him from inside, fascinated by his solitude, by the quiet determination that seemed to fuel him. One afternoon, I found him in the library flipping through a book on modern art, his fingers tracing the lines of a sculpture, his gaze intense. Hesitation fluttered in my chest, a vulnerability I've buried for years. Good eye, I said, stepping into the room, voice soft. He looked up, a small smile touching his lips. Loved this period, the raw emotion, the freedom. Silence settled between us, comfortable yet charged, and I realized with a jolt I wanted to know everything about him, his life, his work, the fire that burned within him. A feeling unexpected, unsettling, a quiet desire that bloomed with each passing day, each stolen glance. Would you show me your work sometime? I asked, voice barely a whisper. He nodded, gaze steady, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. I'd like that. And in that moment, a connection sparked, a bond unspoken yet undeniable, thrilling, terrifying. A line crossed in my heart, even if not yet in action. From that day on, I sought moments near him to hear his voice, to catch glimpses of the passion that illuminated him, a quiet dance, a careful ballet of glances and hushed words. Each step a reminder of the risk, the precipice we approached. Richard, oblivious, preoccupied in his own orbit. Days spent reviewing market reports, managing his empire from afar. Secure in the fortress he had built, I meanwhile moved through each day with a strange anticipation, a longing that felt both new and achingly familiar. Rediscovering a part of myself I thought long dormant. One evening, by the window watching the city lights blur below, a warmth settled over me, a quiet certainty. What I felt was real, more than fleeting desire. I knew the risks, the potential for devastation, but in that moment, none of it mattered. I was alive in a way I've forgotten, and I was ready to burn whatever bridges lay ahead. It started with a touch accidental, almost a brush of hands in the library one afternoon, the penthouse hushed in the midday quiet, only the cities. Distant murmur reaching us, Richard. Was downtown meetings scheduled for hours. I reached for a book on the top shelf, my fingers brushing Ethan's as he reached for the same volume. I looked up and it was there. The unspoken tension coiled between us, a current waiting to be unleashed. His hand lingered on mine, a heartbeat too long, and in that moment something snapped. The line blurred and vanished, no turning back. From then on, our encounters shifted, careful, deliberate, each glance, each word laced with a thrill that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Stolen moments in the hushed corners of the penthouse, in the library where he showed me his sketches, in the darkened home theater where our hands brushed in the velvet seats. A rhythm developed, a silent language slipping into each other's orbits. Whenever Richard was absent or absorbed, I felt reborn, senses heightened, every interaction charged with possibility freedom, a new intimacy, one that went beyond the physical I saw in Ethan, a kindred spirit, someone who understood the quiet ache I carried, the longing for something real. And as days bled into weeks, the pull intensified each encounter, drawing us closer, binding us in ways I never anticipated. It happened in the study, a room Richard rarely entered. We were alone, the penthouse echoing with silence, save for the cities. Distant hum, I was lost in a book of photography, the stark beauty of black and white landscapes, when Ethan walked in. His presence filled the room, a quiet energy that made my heart race. He moved towards me, footsteps soft on the thick rug, and for a moment we just stood there. Silence thick with unspoken words, unspoken desires. I looked up, meeting his gaze, and everything else dissolved. The penthouse, Richard, the life I'd built, only Ethan remained. His eyes dark, his expression a mirror of my own vulnerability. Without a word, he reached out his hand, brushing my cheek, and then his lips were on mine. Soft searching, a tentative exploration that sent shivers through me, warmth flooded. Me, a sense of peace and exhilaration, as if stepping into a world I've always dreamed of but never dared to enter. When we broke apart, silence hung heavy, charged with the weight of what we had just done. I knew consequences awaited a path fraught with danger, but in that moment, I didn't care. Only the connection mattered, the bond forged in the hushed silence of the penthouse. In the days that followed, our relationship deepened, boundaries dissolving as we sought solace in each other's presence. Quiet. Mornings in the breakfast nook, watching the city awaken our conversations, a lifeline, a chance to escape the gilded cage of my life with Richard. Ethan spoke of his art, his dreams, the world he saw through his artist's eyes, and I was captivated by his passion, his vision, a fire in him, a drive that mirrored dreams I've long since buried beneath layers of routine. I too shared my secrets, my regrets, the unspoken voids in my life. He listened, gaze steady silence, a comfort, a reassurance that I wasn't alone. And as I spoke, a weight lifted, a release, shedding the layers of a life that no longer fit. But with each shared moment, each clandestine encounter, the stakes escalated, the risk of discovery, a shadow looming over us. Richard, perceptive, his gaze lingering a second too long, his questions subtly probing, he sensed the shift, the tremor in our carefully constructed world, even if he couldn't name it. We were playing a dangerous game, walking a tightrope of secrets. I knew consequences were inevitable, but the pull was too strong, the connection too real. I was willing to risk everything for a taste of life, for a chance to feel alive. As our affair deepened, so did the weight of guilt. Nights were restless, listening to Richard's breathing beside me. The ache of betrayal, a constant companion. I told myself it was temporary, an escape from a life grown too sterile, too predictable. But deep down, I knew it was more. Not just fleeting attraction, something deeper, something that touched a part of me. I thought, long dead one night. Richard stirred beside me, his hand reaching for mine in the darkness, a pang of guilt, a reminder of the man I've once loved, the life we built. But as I held his hand familiar, warmth felt hollow, my heart no longer his. The love we shared faded, replaced by an emptiness I could no longer ignore, and in that moment I knew my choices had set me on a course irreversible, a path of shadows stretching ahead, secrets and desires destined to unravel, days blurred into weeks, the fragile web of secrets growing more tangled with each stolen glance, each whispered word. Thrilling, terrifying, a constant reminder of the tightrope walk. Richard's presence, a quiet threat, his gaze more penetrating, his questions sharper. He was closing in, piecing together the shattered fragments of truth. Richard had always been observant, a man who noticed the smallest details, a trait I once admired, his clarity, his sharp perception. But now that clarity felt like a spotlight blinding in, its intensity cutting through the shadows I desperately tried to maintain. I'd catch him watching me, his gaze lingering too long, eyes filled with a quiet intensity that stole my breath. No direct accusations, no explosive confrontations. Just silence more potent than any words, each unspoken question a countdown. One evening by the fireplace, Richard turned to me, his expression thoughtful, voice calm but laced with something I couldn't decipher. "Coraline, you're distracted lately," he said, gaze steady, tone deceptively casual. "Everything all right?" The question caught me off guard, blood draining from my face, heart hammering. Panic threatened to surface, but I forced a smile, a brittle mask, just a lot on my mind, I replied. Voice steady but betraying a tremor, the penthouse, the renovations, it's all a bit overwhelming sometimes. He nodded, gaze unwavering, dissecting my words, searching for hidden meanings I see. Important to stay focused, though, isn't it, to remember what matters? Weight in his words, a subtle warning, a chill down my spine. He was watching, waiting for the truth to surface. I swallowed, forced myself to hold his gaze, meet his silent challenge. Fear washed over me, a tidal wave threatening to drown me. Tension tightened each day, a vice around my chest, desperate for escape. I sought Ethan, more clinging to our connection, the fleeting freedom he offered. But even that freedom was tainted, shadowed by doubts, questions I dared not voice. One afternoon, Richard out meeting an old colleague, I searched for a book in the study, the room's quiet always. Soothing the scent of leather and old paper, the soft light filtering through the blinds. But as I pulled a volume from the shelf, a stack of papers tumbled out, scattering across the floor. Kneeling to gather them, a name leapt out, Arlo Callahan. My heart skipped a beat, scanning the pages, hands trembling. Financial records, legal notices, letters from creditors, a life unraveling struggles, debts, a man haunted by choices. Payment, demands, default notices, even a legal threat. My mind raced, each line a revelation, each word a piece of a puzzle I never knew existed. I thought I knew him, believed in our connection built on shared truth. But these pages painted a different story, a dark knot forming in my stomach, betrayal mingling with confusion. Had he come here because of these debts? Was our connection a means to an end, escape refuge from a life collapsing around him? I closed the folder, hands shaking, trying to make sense of it. All part of me wanted to confront him, demand answers, but fear held me back, afraid of the truth, afraid of what his answers might reveal, a stranger in my own life caught between loyalty and desire, trust and suspicion. That evening, I found Ethan on the balcony, watching the city lights blur on the horizon. Posture tense, expression distant. I approached him, heart pounding, mind racing with questions I couldn't articulate. "Ethan," I began, voice barely a whisper. "There's something I need to know." Turned gaze, steady expression, unreadable. What is it? Hesitation, searching for the right words, the ones that would unlock the truth. "Why didn't you tell me about the debts, the financial trouble?" His face tightened. Regret, shame flashed across his features. He looked away, shoulders slumping, a moment of defeat. For a moment, I thought he might turn, walk away, vanish back into the shadows, taking his secrets with him. But he sighed, resignation in his voice. "I didn't want you to know," he murmured tone. Soft, defeated thought. I could leave it behind, that it wouldn't matter here. His words struck a nerve, reminding me of the love I thought we shared, the connection that felt so real, so tangible, I wanted to forgive him. Cling to the illusion, but doubts lingered, shadows darkening everything. Our relationship built on lies, secrets, impossible to keep buried. Next day, Eleanor, a longtime family friend, arrived. Familiarity, warmth, a stark contrast to the penthouse's tense air. Eleanor in her 70s. Sharp-wit, perceptive eyes that saw through facades. She knew Richard for decades, watched him build his empire. Her gaze held kindness, scrutiny unsettling me. Something's different here. "Coraline," she said, tone casual concern underlying. "You seem distracted." I forced a smile, brushed off her words, but she was relentless, gaze piercing. "Been thinking a lot, that's all," I replied, voice calm but uneasy. Eleanor nodded, thoughtful gaze lingering. "Be careful, Coraline. I know Richard can be difficult, and I know you've been lonely, but secrets surface and some are better left buried." Her words a chill, a reminder. Time was running out, delicate balance unraveling, tried to dismiss it. Old woman, prying, but fear lingered, dread shadowing each day, each encounter. As days passed, Richard's suspicion solidified, gaze more intense, questions sharper, each one a reminder he was closing in, truth about to explode. Living on borrowed time, each moment thick with unspoken secrets. One evening by the fire, Richard turned to me, expression serious, voice calm but edged with fury. "I know, Coraline," he said, words cutting through silence, each one a blow. "I know about you and Ethan." Words hung heavy, accusation, truth undeniable. My heart shattered, fragments, scattering reminders of betrayal, apologies, explanations, pleas for forgiveness died in my throat. Too late, damage irreparable. As Richard stood, silence, final condemnation, I realized I had lost everything. Life built, shattered by choices, lies, morning after Richard's confrontation, penthouse eerily silent. Every step through vast rooms, hollow weight of his words crushing. Couldn't meet my own reflection, let alone face the man I'd betrayed. Every room, every corner echoed his unspoken accusations. Penthouse itself seemed to know my deception. Richard's demeanor shifted, rage, simmering, bitterness in every glance, distance no longer. Just emotional, a chasm of broken trust, sacrificed everything for this reality. Later that evening, study gathering thoughts. Richard. Entered, footsteps echoing. Stood across room, arms crossed, face a mask of restrained fury. Braced myself, heart hammering, knowing this moment defined everything. Tell me the truth, Coraline, he said, voice calm, hardness chilling. I deserve that at least. Swallowed, forced myself to meet his gaze, instinct screaming to look away. I never meant to hurt you, Richard, I whispered. Voice barely audible, guilt, heavy, bitter laugh shook his head, and yet you did destroy everything we built, everything we shared. Was it worth it? Question, cut deeper than any accusation. Tears pricked my eyes, admission of choices irreversible, wanted to explain. Justify loneliness, emptiness, but explanations were futile words only adding to pain. I don't know, I whispered, voice breaking. I was lost, Richard. I didn't know how to tell you, he nodded, expression hardening. So instead, you chose him. My own son betrayed me unforgivably, suffocating silence. Chasm insurmountable, weight of his words, truth of his anger, no path. To redemption. After conversation, emptiness, hollow ache settling in my chest, numb. Directionless, found Ethan in garden posture. Tense guilt and anger warring in his eyes. Gazing out over city didn't turn as I approached, tension palpable. He knows, I said softly, whisper words, lingering confession. Ethan nodded, gaze distant, unreadable. Thought he might, he murmured resignation in his voice. Silence, comfortable yet charged bond built on fragility, destined to shatter, wanted to believe in him, trust in. Our love... But now cracks were glaring, failures exposed. What happens now, I asked. Voice trembling, fear and regret mingled. He looked at me, gaze steady, sadness in his eyes. I don't know. Coraline, don't think there's a way back. Words, a slap. Reality, unavoidable consequences, irreversible. Wanted to reach out, hold on. To connection, but it was over. End of a road paved with shadows. Days after penthouse emptier than ever. Richard. Distant silence, a constant reminder of broken trust, destroyed life, Ethan. Withdrawn, ghostly presence of choices made love lost. One morning, Richard approached, expression calm, eyes cold determination. You need to leave Coraline, he said. Voice firm, final, this can't be mended. Words hung in air, sentence expected, yet devastating, wave of sorrow washed over me, life, losing love, destroyed. I understand, I whispered. Voice breaking, acknowledgement of choices, consequences, he nodded, expression softening briefly. Flicker of man I once loved betrayed. Hope you find peace, Coraline. Really do turned and walked away, leaving me alone in emptiness. Weeks later, left penthouse. Small apartment, coastal town, modest place. Nothing like Richard's. Kingdom, simplicity, a balm. Starting over, remnants of shattered life. Days, quiet, stark contrast to former life. Muted sea sounds, distant traffic. Mornings, walking. Beach footsteps, muffled waves, lapping time. Passing change inevitable, lost everything. Richard, stability, life taken for granted, yet in silence, strange peace, freedom in absence of. Expectations, roles alone. Yes, solitude, understanding choices, path taken, reasons for a fair escape. Desperate attempt to find something real alive. Looking back now, searching for something within. Not in another person. Purpose, belonging beyond roles, beyond expectations. Ethan too searching different paths, shaped by struggles, regrets. Wondered if he'd found what he sought. Life, free from shadows, but knew likely never see him again. Connection, fleeting. Storm changed, both scarred, stronger perhaps. Quieter moments, revisiting memories, not anger or regret, acceptance. Every choice led here. This life lost much, gained resilience, strength, facing truth, now, looking out over sea waves, endless resolve. Peace, accepting choices, no longer haunted by ghosts, regrets, what ifs. Freedom in solitude, strength in quiet, whole, complete in ways unimaginable. May never know if Ethan found his life peace, sought in our time. May never see Richard again, forgiveness craved, but don't need it now, enough on my own. Life built in wake of loss, mine alone, sunset over water, hues of gold and crimson, quiet, bittersweet smile. Turning away from past, facing future, ready to embrace whatever lies ahead.